All right, welcome to the Education Conference and our panel about teachers and professional development and overcoming the challenges and adversity. I am really excited to have a group of individuals here who are highly accomplished and have done a lot of great work in this field. And so I'm actually going to do something different, shake it up a little bit. I'm going to call them one by one and have them introduce themselves. So Carol, Dr. Carol, let me start with you.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good night, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Dr. Carol Hordatt Gentles, and I'm talking to you from Jamaica. I work at the University of the West Indies, the School of Education. And one of the things I'm most proud of recently in my career is that I had the privilege of leading a research project, a global research project that found out how teachers are managing and coping with the pandemic. So I hope that I can draw on a lot of that research to answer some of the questions today. I'm looking forward to this panel. Thanks.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Carol. Yuri.
Oh, 1 second. Okay, good afternoon. My name is Yuri Ben-Ari. I am in Israel, in the Middle East. And I am the founder and the president of Athena Fund that I founded 13 years ago. I'm very proud of it. Our mission is to empower teachers and by closing the digital gap. And to date, we gave out more than 30,000 mobile computers and training to teachers all over the country. And they met very well the COVID-19, so I'm very proud of it.
Excellent, thank you. Professor Ling.
Hi everyone, my name is Ling Lo. My official designation is that I'm the Dean for Teacher Education at the National Institute of Education, Nanyang Technological University, Singapore. I'm very proud of the fact that we prepare all teachers at the pre-service level for all schools in Singapore. One of the recent career prouds, I guess, is that I was able to help a few hundred teachers transit in the midst of the pandemic in Singapore when about 300 over teachers were out on their final practicum and they had to be switched from face-to-face classrooms to virtual classrooms overnight during the practicum because of the circuit breaker. So I'm very happy that I was able to guide them in this journey. And I look forward to our conversations later on. For me, it's late at night, but I know for my host, it's in the afternoon. And for some of you, it's in the morning. We'll continue our conversations later. And I'm very happy to be part of this panel and to meet all of you.
Thank you. Professor Joanna.
Hello, everyone. My name is Joanna Madalińska-Michalak. I'm based at the University of Warsaw. I speak to you from Poland, from the, let me say, the center of Europe. And what I'm proud of, it's a very interesting question. But the first thing that comes to my mind is that I'm able to serve for the global association, which is called World Education Research Association. I'm vice president of this association. And I'm very happy that my colleagues, they trust me and they decided that I can perform this role and I can support them in developing the science in the global dimension. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And last but not least, Karuna. Unmute yourself.
Yes, that happens a lot. Okay. Hi, I'm Karuna Finch, and I'm the head of faculty in an international school in Warsaw, Poland, so very close to Professor Joanna. Also it's afternoon here. Something that I'm proud of today is that I'm a very proud member of the teacher tribe, because we have actually moved and we've been in the center of the education right now when we moved online overnight, as Carol just shared. And as being the head of the faculty, I was very, I was very happy that I could support a lot of my team members who were new to the teaching profession. They were in the first year of their careers. A lot of them were in the first year of their careers, and we could move very fluidly into this new landscape. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. And just for those of you who don't know me, my name is Lynn Howard. I am from the US, but I'm based out of Bangkok currently, Thailand, and I will be the moderator for today's panel. Again, we're going to be speaking about teachers and how they overcome obstacles and some support mechanisms, as well as professional development. And everybody, I really want to start with the elephant in the room. I mean, last year we were all hammered with COVID, and teachers and professors had a lot of responsibility to really pivot very quickly to adapt without guidelines, without, experience. And I really want to just rip off the Band-Aid and start there, and then we'll kind of go through other things. So I want to know, how you were able to help pivot, or what did for you, Yuri, your company or your universities for the rest, what did you guys do in order to help the teachers and the professors and the students pivot and overcome the challenge of COVID? And I'm going to start with Professor Ling Lo, please.
Thank you very much for that question, Lynn. As I mentioned, the first thing that happened, and I'll give a one sentence recap. The first challenge was that for my student teachers, a few hundred of them were out on their final practicum, and they had to switch overnight from face-to-face of 5.5 weeks and 4.5 weeks into what we call home-based learning, or a virtual online learning platform with virtually very little preparation. So we had to speak with the Ministry of Education, our stakeholders who will be receiving them into all schools after their final practicum, and to convince them that these were teachers who were being prepared in very trying COVID times, and what we could do to support them. So we also put in place support mechanisms so that when they go out to schools, like right now in their beginning teacher years, they will be carefully supported by the schools as well as the Academy of Singapore Teachers run by the Ministry of Education. So we track each and every one of them. We know which schools they're being posted to, and we put in place a lot of support mechanisms. At the faculty level, obviously, all of us had to switch online into online virtual platforms, and we had to provide, first and foremost, the virtual platforms that made this possible, namely Zoom and Teams, I think. In general, we use these platforms. We also provided very quick tips and set up Facebook helpline groups so that the more experienced faculty could really help the others along, and to provide a platform for them to check in when they had questions. The other thing that happened, of course, was that under the aegis of my office, we collated materials from all over the world, which you can still access if you click COVID-19 education-related articles, Office of Teacher Education, National Institute of Education. We have been practically tracking every single international interesting article that we can find on the topic. And in the earlier days, we talked about home-based learning, as well as working from home for parents as well. So I invite you to look at these resources. And I'm very conscious that we each have only 3 minutes max. I would like to stop there and give my other panelists a chance to also share what they had to do to help our teachers be prepared to move overnight and forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ling Lo. And if you have that that link, please put it in the chat, so that way everybody who is here could take a look at that. And I do want to come back to, because you kept saying that you came up with some support mechanisms, and I'd love maybe a couple of specifics besides the Facebook group, if you can give just a couple of specifics, but we'll come back to that later, of support materials besides this link that you're offering. So how about with you, Dr. Carol? What did you guys do?
Okay, so I think that our initial response was more informal. my university actually shut down for 4 weeks in order to allow lecturers and students to just kind of come to terms with what was happening, the shutdown, and to respond to the mandate to transition online. I think this was good because it helped many people to just, find their feet, to move their classes into on the learning management system that was provided by the university, and also to just have space and time to think about how we were going to move forward. But as university lecturers, particularly in the School of Education, there is a culture, especially in a small country like Jamaica and in a region like the Caribbean, for heavy reliance on academic faculty to offer a lot of outreach services, and to be the source for help and support with change on the educational landscape. So because of that, many of us were called upon time and time again to do things like, facilitate webinars that would support teachers in helping to build their skills, their competence, their capacity for transitioning to online learning. So that was a huge ask of us, and it was challenging because for many of us, the whole transition was also anxiety provoking. But one of the key ways in which we helped in an informal way was that many of us, as we started teaching and as we started reaching out to teachers, we realized there was a tremendous need just to offer spaces for teachers to express how they were feeling. This was very, very helpful and useful. And I think those spaces for dialogue were very much valued by teachers across the country. We also had to work at helping many of our teacher training institutions to figure out how could they redevelop the practicum experience so that the student teachers who were in training, who were traumatized, that they could still fulfill that requirement for certification. So a lot took place informally and formally. Thank you.
Wow. No, thank you. And I believe that, and I know that Professor Ling also had mentioned that it's really important, regardless academia or in any space, profession, politics, to have a safe space, especially last year because it was so unknown. And I love that both of you created that for, within your bubble, university bubble and further, because we need that. It's a human need, and to navigate something that was so unknown for all of us. So that's beautiful. How about, let's come to you, Karuna. Being a new teacher and a newer teacher compared to the rest of the panel, how did you navigate and what did you guys do?
So like what was being shared, we also had both formal and informal support from our team and from the admin. We had a lot of focus group meetings sometimes, and a lot of things were considered about how changes are happening, but also because changes were happening so soon, all the deadlines or all the information that was being given to us was constantly changing, and we had to keep acting on it as and when we got that information. So it was actually getting a little difficult for all of us, because as soon as we would start preparing to act in a certain way, the guidelines would change, and then we had to modify ourselves to act in another way. And while we were doing all this on the professional front, teachers were also having, we need to understand that teachers were also a part of this whole situation emotionally. So we were also trying to adapt to all these changing situations. And in my own team, like I had 1 or 2 teachers who were completely new to teaching, and so there were situations where they'd never met their students face to face, because we had many students who joined mid-semester, and so it was very difficult to connect with certain students. And I think there were a lot of chat sessions that were going on with our students so that we could understand their emotional what they're going through. And then we had to also connect with parents. And I think the whole idea was that to involve all stakeholders and to get to communicate with them so as to build an understanding to what is going on. And we need time to go forward and also to involve their feedback.
Oh, thank you. And I love that you brought up the stakeholders as well, you know, be it those part of the university, but also our community, just really keeping people informed. I know overall has been a shift in many professions and in many verticals that's really helped people get through this. So Professor Joanna, let's come to you.
Thank you. I work at the Faculty of Education at the University of Warsaw, and exactly a year ago, Poland was the country which was one of the first countries where we closed the borders, and very soon we decided that the school will be closed, the university as well. And what we noticed at our universities, our rectors, they were very supportive, because in Poland, every university is autonomous institution. It means that it's up to the rector and the other officials to regulate our work. So also, like in Professor Karol said, we have like 2 weeks for preparing ourselves. And our teacher educators, they have had the possibility to choose if they would like to work synchronously or asynchronously. So they have this choice, because we realize that our teacher educators are not prepared for this completely new digital world. So they had this choice, and we try to support our students as much as possible. But you should imagine that this day, as I mentioned before, starting our panel discussion, I had the whole day teaching, and I talked to my students what about them, what happens in their life, and I noticed from our conversations that 1 year ago, we were everyone in a shock. We tried to support each other emotionally. We tried to understand what happened. But nowadays, the main problem for us as teacher educators and for our students is motivation, because everyone is not able to say when this time of pandemic will finish. And I really see, especially among the students, the future teachers, a kind of the loss of enthusiasm. So I can say that the well-being is reduced, and it is main issue that we should focus on. I could say that a year ago we were very successful with adaptation and with continuation of the process of education, but my assumption is that now, after a year, even we have a more worse situation if the situation will continue. Thank you.
No, thank you, Professor Joanna. And you brought up a couple of great points, and one that we will come back to actually after I toss it over to Yuri to finish this out on this question. But you brought up motivation and enthusiasm and how to increase engagement, because we're overall globally, we're burnt out, you know, of everything that's happened and the uncertainty. And it's just kind of like we're all fried in a sense, regardless of how great we overcome obstacles or not. It's just, it's part of how we feel. So we are going to come back to that after this question. Yuri, I'd like to finish it out, this question with you, and with you being the only one not in academia as a professor, but you dedicated your life to supporting professors and universities and students. So how were you able to pivot and really make an impact during this last year?
Okay, so actually I think the challenge did not start with the corona. I've seen the challenge in the last decade where teachers are underestimated and disrespected. And I think that the governments and decision makers did not supply them with the right equipment and the right training. We took the initiative to supply every teacher in our country that she or he will have a mobile computer with 120 hours of professional training. We've been doing it more than a decade, and thank God, I think that our teachers met the Corona with knowledge and with equipment, because everybody moved back home and they have to teach from home. When the kids are, I'm not dealing with universities other than in conferences, I meet my colleagues, but we are dealing mostly with K to 12, and we give computers to these teachers. And I think that the Corona, I see it as an opportunity, not as other than the disaster. I think that now many people understand the difficult job of a teacher and the importance of the role of the teacher. When parents have to do the job or the role at home, so suddenly they understand what the teacher is doing. And I think that this will change the attitude or the respect to teachers first. Secondly, I think in my country at least, still 50% of the teachers do not have personal computers, although they may have it at home, but they do not have an access because they have two kids who are also studying at the same time and using the computer, or her husband that is unemployed and works from home. So I think governments all over the world actually, but a few countries, they do not supply teachers with the right equipment. And maybe the Corona just shed a light now and give the opportunity to do that. I think that now talking about the Corona in my country, I think the government took measures, took steps, and recorded a lot of lessons, a lot of classes, and people or children could listen to see it in television or in the internet or by Zoom, synchrony or asynchronic, but altogether I think still, and I believe in many countries, especially our country is a little developed. I would say it's not like Singapore, but it's quite developed, but still 50% of the teachers do not have computers. And I think in many other countries, maybe 60 to 80% of the countries where teachers do not have a computer at home, personal computer, many children stay at home without a teacher. And this is disaster. And I think that maybe a lesson that we can learn, that the governments must respect teachers and must supply them with the equipment and with the training for the next disaster. Don't wait for the next disaster.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely. I'm actually going to follow up with you, and then I'm going to move on to the rest of the panel. I'd love to hear about, so we know that this has been a problem. You've been working on it for many, many years. And so moving forward from this point, what is your plan of action to help bridge that gap with the lack of computers, the lack of technology? Does your company have a plan of action in order to get it out there and to continue to raise the awareness and the importance of students and teachers having the support that they need?
Sure. So I think our mission is to make sure that every teacher should have or will have a mobile computer, personal mobile computer, and a training, professional training. Now, we would like to see it all over the world. You know, we do not have the means or the capacity to do that, but we have been asked by UNESCO to do it in Africa, and we are planning now to do something in some developed countries to help them planning it, and I would say mostly understanding it. I think that, and my colleagues will confirm that even in their countries, maybe Singapore is different because they do give computers to teachers, but in many other countries, they do not. I know Jamaica, and I know Poland, and I know many other countries, they just do not give it as a basic equipment. And I think our mission is to make sure, we did not come to this because of the computers. I came to this mission because I want to work to the position of that the governments will respect teachers. I think we do not see respect to teachers, mostly in most of the countries. There are few countries you can say they respect teachers, like Finland, Korea, Singapore, even China, but most of the other countries, they do not. So our plan, I think when the minute they start respecting teachers, they will supply them with the right equipment. So this is our plan to continue with this mission until every teacher will have a computer and the training in order to cope with the 21st century.
All right, Yuri, we're definitely going to come back to you on this topic. I'd love some specifics. I'm going to give this to you now so you can think about it, but I'm going to go to the other panelists. I'd love some specifics on how people can raise awareness to the government, to the powers that be, to really step up to provide the support, to provide that the technology. So I'm going to come back to you with that question. So think about that. So you have a list. Dr. Carol, I'm going to come to you. Moving forward and going off of what some of you had said, Joanna, Professor Joanna at the end, how do you plan on, or what do you have in place or your university to motivate, to encourage that enthusiasm? Because people are burnt out at this point.
Well, I think that right now, as you were talking about fatigue, burnout, we don't want to do any more Zoom meetings. We're tired of the online situation. And I think we all miss the human interaction, and we're not even, haven't yet fully wrapped our minds around how this virtual reality and working in it has affected our physical, being. So I don't think there's a sort of a formal plan, but I think that what we are doing is kind of gathering knowledge and thinking and ideas that we're kind of, it's sort of at the back of our brains, and we're using it through, to inform our research and our thinking in terms of making suggestions for what do we do post-COVID. I think that, that's probably one of the ways in which we are making a contribution. I think that, there's also, people have also got more confident about using technology. And I think they're trying to reach out to help teachers and parents and students in terms of what we've learned and what we know. But unfortunately, there isn't a specific plan. Everybody's still trying to jump in and do what they can, which is unfortunate. But yeah, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, in the state of, and again, not just in academia, across all verticals, it has been a very reactive way because it's unknown, right? And so, but I love that you said that, it's in the back of your mind and you're already starting to think of it. And there are some things that will be birthed from that. Karuna, I want to come to you. Is there anything that you guys are starting to wrap your mind around to help with that burnout or that motivation or enthusiasm of the future?
Honestly, I think we are also adapting to it at the moment. And what we, so I'm speaking more for the teacher community who are working at the grassroots level right now, I would say. So we've started to have our own focus groups where we can discuss and we can share what we've been going through. And we also share experiences that we've had in our classes. And within the teacher community, I think it helps a lot because if I feel that I am the only one struggling, it kind of puts a lot of mental pressure on me. And maybe I'm not doing so well in my class, but when I see somebody else is also facing the same problem, or maybe we can share our worries and concerns and also how others got over them, that has actually helped a lot of people in the teachers community to feel proud of what we're doing. And I think that has put a very positive front for us. So, and the other thing I would like to add is a lot of social media campaigns have been putting this, that teachers are superheroes and teachers are humans. I actually would like to discourage that a little bit, because teachers are humans and we need to be understood as humans first. So yes, we have our days when we are also depressed, and we also have our days when we are struggling. So people need to see that and understand that too.
Absolutely. I know I discussed that with a couple of you on the interview and in the initial meeting that, you know, not only are you having to pivot and deal with all of this at a professional level, but people forget that you have to deal with it also in a personal level. So it's like a double whammy. And I really appreciate you bringing that up. I do want to come back to the benefits of focus groups, because I've actually utilized focus groups in my profession. And so I definitely want to come back to that, but I want to go to the other two professors before we come back to that, because I think that that's a tool that definitely could help others. And yeah, so let's go to you, Professor Joanna. Do you or your colleagues have any ideas about how to motivate, how to increase enthusiasm for 2021 and years to come?
Well, you know, if we would like to help people to be more enthusiastic, I think that first of all, we should start from ourselves, because the energy that we have, it's a very specific phenomenon. It's something that it's hard to touch, but we can share our energy with the others. So first of all, we should take care of ourselves, and then we should focus on our prospective teachers. And the time when I talked to my students, they gave a lot of simple tips how we as a teacher educators, academics, how we can help them sometimes to be more enthusiastic. For example, they said that they are really tired, that from time to time, the teachers, they focus only on instructions and assessment. They said that even though we have 21st century and we can use this emerging technology, using this emerging technology, we teach like in the 19th century. It means that in a very traditional way, we simply try to transfer the knowledge to the students. And they said that very simple solution like breakout rooms, they can help them a lot, because they can discuss, of course, on the issue that is just to them, to each breakout room, but they can use the time like in the real classroom. It means that at the time when they do the task, they can simply interact and talk about something else, which is very helpful for them, because in time of isolation, when they are not able to meet each other, it's one of the situations in which they really can use the time for themselves. So it's the solution from the students. And I think that we must share the emotions. Of course, I'm not opt for this, that we as a teacher would be very optimistic and we have the students who are very sad, because it's a kind of the cognitive dissonance. It's impossible to do in this way. So if we see that our group is full of these negative emotions, we should help them to change a little bit, and sometimes simple conversation about them, about their life, can help a lot. Thank you.
Absolutely. You had some really great points. I do want to talk about breakout rooms. Actually, my daughter is in university and she's studying to be an anesthetician, and so a nurse. And they just got back their grades from a test, and everybody failed. Every single one of the students failed. So the common denominator is what happened in the actual teachings. And you said 2 points that I just spoke with my daughter about today. Is they were told, they weren't actually worked through the process, right? So it was, and because they're burnt out, they couldn't absorb it. And the second thing she said for the solution was a breakout room. Even if they're being told that that's the professor's style, a breakout room would have given them the opportunity to be able to kind of discuss and come back with questions that they could all understand. So I love that you brought up those 2 points, because I literally had this conversation with my daughter who's in university right now. Professor Ling Lo, I want to come to you for this question.
Sure. Okay, I'll share some points, and I'll try to share from both the systemic perspective as well as what we did for the professors. So as a result of providing, like what Carol said, a safe space to listen to our colleagues about what they really needed, we did have many conversations on Zoom during circuit breaker with our heads of departments, and they told us about the problems on the ground that their faculty faced and everything. So with this open conversation, we continued even after the lockdown, our circuit breaker was over. We then got together a whole group who came together with great ideas about how we needed to transform our physical tutorial rooms such that it would be a dream collaborative room that can at once be both a synchronous as well as an asynchronous collaborative classroom of the future. So what it really means is that it will allow you to both teach in a face-to-face platform, but be also transformed immediately if you need to, because of the circuit breaker. So that's one exciting project, getting them on board to come together to talk about envisioning the classroom of the future based on the current needs. So that's very motivating because it's from the ground. Secondly, I think as a system, we have just, really put on steroids, if we like, the personalized digital learning program. And this time it's not just for all teachers, but for all students. Because whilst Uri has pointed out, every teacher has a mobile device to work on, we have always wanted as a system to provide each and every pupil with a digital learning device. And this has just been sped up from 7 years to a 1-year period of implementation. So that's something really exciting. And along with this provision of the digitalized learning device is also a transformation of how we need to teach in order to engage the students. So that in itself is exciting, because if the technology that the students are being presented with has changed, then teachers have no choice but to transform. And by extension, teacher educators have even less choice but to transform themselves in terms of their pedagogies overnight and forever. I'd now like to end with just one quick point, which we can pick up again later because I see it in the chat room as well. Another career proud, which I'd like to share about, is that I'm co-chair of the Center for Character and Citizenship Education Center that we are going to be setting up at our institute in partnership with the Ministry of Education Singapore, because we do realize that mental well-being and cyber wellness were two very big issues that happened and out of the pandemic. And I'd like to stop here and pick up on all these points if there's traction later on.
Well, actually, yeah, thank you. And I want to throw it back at you to go ahead and dive into that, because that was the direction I was going to go about mental health and also I love that you use the cyber well-being, because it is so important. And now that everything's thrown virtual, like it's become really apparent. And I know some countries, I'm in Thailand, so there's certain rules and laws against like cyberbullying and different things. And I don't know country to country, but please give us some points on what you're doing and how you're changing that, that landscape there.
Sure. I am very happy that this panel is taking place today and not yesterday, because it was just officially announced on the media yesterday about the setting up of the center. So the center is envisaged to be a thought leader in both the research as well as the practice of character and citizenship education, aspirationally for the region as well as internationally eventually, because we see that character and citizenship education needs to be approached from multiple disciplines and multiple lenses. In order to do that, you do need to engage in evidence-informed research that can help us in policy formulation as well as pedagogical practice. And for this reason, the center will have experts working with schools in order to bring out the most innovative pedagogies that can help us to enact the quality of character and citizenship education classes in schools. Now, all this is happening in tandem with a very exciting new and enhanced character and citizenship education curriculum that's been launched by the ministry in 2021, which is this year. And the National Institute of Education, where I work, has launched a new course this year as well to prepare student teachers to be able to be provided with the content as well as the skills to teach the new character and citizenship education course. And aspirationally, as a system, we envisage that every teacher is a CCE teacher and not just a specialist who can teach CCE. So that is what we're moving towards. And within the course, we teach student teachers the why, the what, and the how of facilitating character and citizenship education. Also understanding how both local as well as global events, both physically as well as on an online platform, can affect students' development of character and their moral values. And we also teach them how to facilitate very difficult and complex conversations in the classroom, especially with all the complicated things that are happening around the world. So those are the broad directions that we are taking. And I know it's very exciting, but I just have 3 minutes only to share about what we're doing as a system.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yuri, I'd love to throw it back over to you. I know this is your world with providing technology and training in technology. What do you, first of all, what do you think of what Professor Ling Lo just said, as well as, are you also pivoting in that way, and how is your programs changed moving forward?
Well, I think first of all, I have a full respect to Professor Lo Ling. She's a very esteemed dean in one of the most advanced countries. I'm also an expert in smart cities, and I have a full respect to Singapore as having a 50-year ahead planning. They plan today for 2050, and that's why I have a lot of respect. And I think in Singapore they also have a lot of respect to teachers as a very advanced profession. They understand the role of the teachers, whereby I think many other countries, including my own, although we have good teachers, etc., but they don't have enough respect to the profession of teaching. And I think this is something we have to fight for and to promote. And I think it's an opportunity today with the Corona. I think many people, as I said before, understand now what does the teacher do, because many parents are doing that today on a daily basis. They mentor their children to use the Zoom and to use the study and help them with homework and making reports, etc. So our plans will not change. I think it's only will get us stronger in what we claim. When I came 10 years ago and claimed that every teacher needs a computer, also in national, international sessions, and Professor Ling and also Professor Joanna, they know I claimed it over the stages of UNESCO, whereby everybody is saying, let's give the teacher knowledge and training about ICT and teach them how to use computers, but they do not give them computers to be used. So I think they just miss this simple fact that the teacher must have it. Although, there is a reason.
Yuri, sorry, you've been cut off. We'll come back to you. Your 3 minutes is up just for time.
No, okay.
Yep.
I'm back.
Yep.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. you're passionate about the topic, but our second moderator is watching. And but we will come back to you definitely, Yuri. I'd like to continue on this wave of professional development for the three other panelists who I haven't spoke with this last round. What type of professional development or support in that arena would you like to see come out for the professors and for the teachers? I'll go to you, Carol, first. Dr. Carol.
Yeah. Okay, so I have several thoughts, and as I listened to my colleague from Singapore, I'm just so jealous of what you are able to do, and it brings into, in stark contrast the reality that many of us in poorer countries are facing, and countries where, as Yuri said, that level of respect for teachers and the teachers' work and the support they need is just not where it needs to be. I think that, right now, like in Jamaica and across the region, many of us we're just really treading water. We're just trying to keep our heads above water as we navigate our way through this pandemic. And unfortunately, in terms of support for professional development, it's there through, ministries offering training for teachers and the private sector jumping in to provide devices, etc. But interestingly, I think most of the real professional learning, which is more desirable than professional development, because that's kind of done to teachers. I think the opportunities for professional learning have emerged from the teachers themselves. There has been an amazing groundswell of teachers suddenly realizing, hey, because of what the online space is causing me to do, to become more learner-centered, because the physical walls have come down and now my learners have more power to do what they want. I can't force them to engage with me. I need to reach out to them so that they're engaged. So I have to become more creative in what I do. And in doing that, they have begun to realize, hey, I can exert agency over my own professional learning. And this has created, many teachers are talking about this and the mindset change that has been happening. And so I think that's something that really needs to be, documented and talked about and fostered. And we need to, and hopefully those of us who are in academia and policymakers and people like Yuri and Karuna can really help to push that forward so that we don't forget when the pandemic is over, and that we continue to give teachers the opportunity to drive the change for their own ongoing professional learning and development.
I love that. And I completely got chicken skin listening to you, because I think that is essential, and that is the wave overall, again, and because I'm from the entrepreneurial world, not the academia world, but that's happening across different verticals as well, where people are stepping up and driving the learning and the development at more of the grassroots and their experiential levels, besides their knowledge and their education, but really that experiential. So I love that you touched on that. And I definitely believe it needs to be long-term. We'll talk about where you all feel that education's going, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. We'll come back to that. How about you, Karuna? I'd love to pass it over to you, and either professional development or professional learning. I love that term. What would you like to see as a teacher, or what would your group of teachers and professors love to see?
I would actually like to add on to what Uri had said, because he stressed so much already. He's talked already a lot about the technology based learning that we need. But as a teacher, what I really want right now is to understand how to deal with so much emotion in my classroom. There's a lot of time when I go into my classroom and all I see is black screens. Students are not even ready to turn on their cameras because they're just not feeling like it. So how do I teach through that? So at that point, I have a device, they have a device, but no one wants to turn it on. So what do we do? So building emotion, building happiness, I don't know if we've been taught all that during our professional learning. And so that is a sort of professional learning that I would really want. And the other thing would be, yeah, I was just looking at it, is maybe because we are working against time, so more interdisciplinary learning. How can we actually get more planning time? Teachers need more planning time so we can talk to our colleagues, so we can see what all is overlapping, so we can build curriculums or we can build units that require the students to do less looking at the screen or things like that, or less exerting themselves. So coming up with such learning scenarios is, I think, something that teachers really need a lot right now.
Oh, thank you so much for that, Karuna. Great, great points. And yeah, that was actually, some of that was discussed in our last conference a couple of days ago about how to deal with emotions and really how to help engage and process that for others and share the space with them. So I love that you brought that up. Professor Joanna, I'd love to end with this question with you. And actually, Karuna alluded or mentioned something that you said as an answer to your last question that you were asked about dealing with emotions and how do you navigate that. So what type of professional development or professional learning would you like to see in the near future for yourself and colleagues?
It's a huge and very broad topic, so it's really hard to yeah, because, you know, when we think about teachers, we have teachers in different stages of their career. We have young teachers, teachers who are in the process of induction, so at the beginning of their professional career. We have the teachers who are around 40 or around 50, and teachers who are close to retired. And each group of these teachers, they have different needs, different training needs, they have different problems at their daily life. We should see teachers as people who at the same time perform different roles. Sometimes students that let me say a few years ago, they have the problem if teachers, they do shoppings, that they are normal people. Yes, they are normal people, so they have the job and they have different needs. But before our panel, I was looking at the World Bank report. It was prepared exactly a year ago. And there is the section teachers and teaching, and we have that teachers working online, they need to be trained and support. So they need to be trained how to work online, but support, it means, as Karuna mentioned and the other our colleagues, they need to be support emotionally and they need to feel strong in their profession. Ben-Ari said we should look not only at teachers but at the profession. I think that the teaching profession should be satisfying and attractive profession. If we will have this, it would be easier to offer teachers trainings because, for example, in Poland, there is massive number of trainings. There is no problem to find the right course for the teachers. Whatever they wish, they can have, because I think it's very active support regarding this issue. But in fact, what we are talking about now and what we are touching is the center of our human being. So we are talking about the emotions, we are talking about the social competences of teachers, how do they feel as people. And from my point of view, not only this, the real training regarding the teaching is important, but how to support teachers as people and how to make teaching attractive profession. I will add soon, I will have no time to talk more, but students are afraid to enter the profession because of the coronavirus. So we can have the problem with recruiting teachers. Thank you.
Yeah. If we have time, we'll come back to that. I kind of like to piggyback to wrap this question up, but also almost start a new one, which I told Yuri we'd come back to, is, you know, how do we bring awareness to the government levels, to the powers that be, that there is more need? So what are some steps that either you've done, and we're all envious of Professor Ling. Like, this is amazing stuff that they're doing in Singapore and really cutting edge and pioneering the way. So your response might be very different since you're in that and actually actively in that. But what are some things that teachers or professors or, you know, those that are listening can do to bring that awareness to, for lack of better terminology, fight for this change, this movement that needs to happen, that's a necessity, that needs to happen? And Yuri, I'm going to throw it back over to you. What are some simple things or some things that people can do to bring this awareness more forward?
Well, nothing is simple. I think we have to understand the roots of it. I think that in the last 10, 20 years, teachers have lost the major role that they used to have when we all were children. The major role was as a source of knowledge. And today, I think in the last 10, 15 years, the teachers have lost this role. Therefore, they have lost the role, the respect that they used to have by the parents, by the families, and by the kids themselves. Still, professors in universities have this respect because they keep the highest knowledge, the research, etc. So it's not in the internet and not everybody can get it. However, I think during the Corona time, no student have stepped in any university around the world, including my colleagues here. Everybody was learning from home, from video or from Zoom. So we have to think the future is going to change, I think. I know in my country and in other countries, there are new programs to make 50% at least of the material, the pedagogical material, to be recorded and to be online. So students will start getting, you know, they call it in the past flip, a flip class and all kinds of, ideas that in the past look like something weird, but today they understand it. And I think there is a big change. I'll go back to your question so I don't take too much time. I maybe speak about it in my next session, but what I would like to say, I think that teachers suffer of a low self-esteem, especially when there are many women in this profession, and this is something we have to change. Teachers must start becoming assertive, not only being dependent on their unions that represent them, so-called, but they are very receptive. They are ready to work with low salaries and without computers and without a lot of other means. You speak here to the professors from universities, which is totally different. They prepare the next generations of teachers, but the teachers, when they get to the school and they meet the reality, they find themselves, in a different environment. It's disrespectful environment. And I think this must start from the teachers themselves. If we could have all the teachers pushing and sharing our website or your website or whatever, just claiming or demanding these things, the respect that they deserve, we have to find.
Yep, you have time again. But that's a great point, is to push those websites and to really bring more awareness around that. I'm going to throw it back over to Professor Ling Lo, because you have a supportive government, or it seems like it, and the powers that be. So what do you feel that other countries can do to bring more knowledge and awareness around this, to make the changes?
Sure. So I'd like to pick up from where Yuri was speaking about, and I think a few of us have been going back to this point. And it is absolutely true. You need to deeply respect teachers, and that is a very good starting point for every country and every government to realize. And I'd like to quote from our founding Prime Minister, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, the late Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, who had this to say in 1966, and I quote, "Just as a country is as good as its citizens, so its citizens are finally only as good as their teachers," unquote. This is absolutely powerful. And from the time of Singapore's independence, we are a very young nation, founded only in 1965 in terms of our independence. And we've always respected teachers to be nation builders. We've accorded them with the same status as those who built our nation. And in fact, all other professions rely on teachers. And if anything, I feel as if the pandemic has underscored this importance, that teachers, along with healthcare workers, are frontline essential workers during the pandemic. And I had this reflective quote myself, which is that the role of all educators during a pandemic is to keep learning going, no matter how, no matter what, and no matter when. And this is a very, very deep and powerful message. In order for this to happen, I feel as if we need to approach the whole endeavor of education in a very different way. In the past, we looked at deep, specialized knowledge as being very important. And that's why you go into university to get a very good basic degree, and later on even to specialize in a particular discipline. But today, right from the word go, we need interdisciplinarity, because the problems that we're trying to solve, as exemplified by the pandemic, is complex, is wicked, as some of the great thought leaders have talked about. It requires so many different skills, not just medical, statistical, social. There are so many environmental, and even psychological, as we've all pointed out. So there is an urgent need for us to be able to prepare our teachers as well as our students to ultimately be exposed to multidisciplines in order to be able to be problem solvers. To me, that is the new goal of education, that we are be able to prepare people who are able to come up with innovative solutions to solve the complicated problems that we are facing today and beyond. I think that's all I have time for this point.
No, thank you. And yeah, I definitely, I got chicken skin on yours as well. I'm going to throw it over to Dr. Carol, because your country is a very different country compared to Singapore, and the economic status and the support. And so I'd like to give you the same question with the twist of future of education. So what do you feel that the future of education is in your country, with how the powers that be are dealing with the situation with the teachers, the professors, and education in this time?
Well, I have to say, I'm very cynical about the capacity of human beings to really change in meaningful ways. In that, right now we're all caught up in this groundswell of having to manage the crisis and deal with it, and we're changing and we're doing wonderful things, and this is wonderful, and it needs to be celebrated, and it restores my faith in what we can do when we work together for change. But I'm also very cynical that once we return to normal, where we could go back to face-to-face teaching and learning, that people are going to forget, and so what the lessons that were learned. And so I think, to me, the most powerful way in which we can try to make sure that things change in the future is to build on what Yuri was saying, that we need to continue to struggle for ways to help our teachers become more assertive and more confident about the contribution that they are making. So in Singapore, the political will of the policymakers was to espouse that view. But in places where that is not the case, I think the work of academics and private sector interests is to keep helping teachers and supporting teachers to feel assertive and to have confidence in their own powers for advocacy. Because if they don't lead that change from the ground up, it's just going to go back to the way it was. Unfortunately, I hate to be so cynical, but to me, that's the reality. That's what history has shown us. So to me, I'm putting all my faith in teachers and also in those of us who support teachers to help them to continue to develop this kind of newfound assertiveness that we're seeing. So I think that's really important. Even when it comes to unions, I mean, many teachers' unions are really all about important things like proper remuneration and the conditions in which teachers work, but they don't pay enough attention to teachers taking ownership of their own paths. And I think finally, we need to ensure that we find, especially as academics, that we find ways to formalize, to document and formalize that experiential knowledge and about professional learning that has been taking place, and then find ways to infuse that into our teacher programs for professional learning, both pre and in service.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Carroll. That's huge. And I really appreciate you bringing up the unions, and I'm going to throw it over to Karuna, but I want to rephrase the question. It's still about the what's the future for education, but you're the youngest one on our panel, not to point it out. You have, but I just did a presentation at the Women's Empowerment Conference about the evolved leader. So leadership has really been changing and developing, and COVID has fast forwarded that hyperspeed because of the different things. With that being said, all of this new blood is coming in, and yes, it has declined some, which you spoke about a little bit, but with the new blood coming in to academia, how do you feel that the newer generation can help shift the future of education, and what maybe some things that the newer generation can do to really encourage and support that?
I think I would like to reference to pop culture here, because pop culture plays a very fast role in glamorizing anything. And what we've seen lately is that teachers are nowhere on screen. No one wants to be a teacher. If you go to a classroom and you ask them, what do you want to be? I can for surely say maybe minimum one person would say that I want to be a teacher. So because they don't know what the role of the teacher is or what the teacher is actually really doing. And I think like what everybody has shared here, that we need people to know what the real teacher world looks like. It is not just going to a class and opening a book and reading out to people, but there is so much of planning, like what Professor Lowe had mentioned, that there are so many skills that are involved. A teacher has to be competent in multiple skills to be present and take ownership of that particular classroom. So I think all the people who are coming into or who want to be teachers understand that, but the younger generation who is still in school don't have no way to know that. So maybe we need sensitization programs, or we need pop culture maybe to focus on the role of the teachers and how they're so meaningful in building a community or a society.
Oh, I definitely agree, and thank you for that. Professor Joanna, I'd love to bring it back over to you. And where do you feel that the future of education is going, and how can that be supported or guided, either with teachers or with professors in the academia world?
Well, I think that, Lynn, the issue that you raised, the educational leadership, is crucial. Teacher agency, teacher awareness about their role and how they can have the impact on the teaching profession, on their realities, their conditions as well, because from my point of view, from the country where I live, I see that our teachers, they have a very broad area of autonomy. However, they sometimes don't use the power that they can have. Our school principals, they have less area to maneuver for within the system, but teachers they have really a lot. And sometimes Karuna mentioned about the realities, about preparing future teachers. We are trying to do this at the universities, but sometimes I see that young people, they are not fully concerned about the realities. In Poland, we have such a situation that still the motivation for teaching is like calling. It means that they have the mission, they have a lot of values, they would like to serve children. We are trying to show them how much complex is the teaching profession, and our prospective teachers, they are preparing for the role, but then again they feel a kind of the shock. So I think that more attention we should pay to the educational leadership and to the realities of the profession and how much complex is the role. In fact, I can say like the anecdote. Yesterday I received a call from my doctoral student. Now he's professor from Turkey, and he said, Joanna, why you didn't urge me that it's such a demanding job to work at the university? I said, Bunyamin, maybe you noticed that every time I said I'm busy, I'm busy, I'm busy. He said, yes, now I know what you meant at that time. So, sometimes even though you have a kind of the warnings and we try to work on the realities, people, they don't pay enough attention. So it might be the problem to embed people more in the practice, to show them the culture of the school, the conditions of working as well. Thank you.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. And yes, people usually don't know what you're going through until they're kind of in your shoes, right? And then they start to understand. Yuri, I want to bring it back over to you. And I want to ask, because you're obviously very passionate about this, supporting teachers and really bringing and professors and academia and bringing awareness. And where does that, not the what, but where does that why come from? That passion, that fire that you have in you? Like, what is that passion? Where does that derive from?
Well, I'm coming from a small country, 9 million people, that grew in the last 70 years in a very harsh environment, I would say. We have to be a survivors, our people. And I think that we have to be at the best in order to stay that way and to succeed. We built up a country out of nothing, actually, in 72 years to become, I can say, one of the leading countries today with technology, with health. And, Singapore is our model, I would say, in what they have achieved. And I think for that, I'm coming from the high-tech industry. I've done 2 IPOs, and I am financially independent, and I decided to do something for my country. I think that the most important subject is to raise children that can be beneficial for the society and self-employed or independent and knowledgeable. And I've seen in my career, I worked in many countries, especially in India and also in Singapore. And I've seen the development of other continents, China and India, and they are competing on the market, with the new technology firms like Google and Facebook and all those companies. People are competing with no relationship to where they come from. So if there is a job in Google, in Seattle, or in Microsoft, they will put a tender out. They can come a child from India, an engineer, not a child, but or somebody from Singapore or somebody from Israel. So in order to compete and be at your best, you must have the best teachers. And I've seen in my country deterioration of the respect to teachers. As my colleague here, Karuna, I think, say that nobody wants to become a teacher. And this is a disaster, not only in my country, I think in many other countries. Mm-hmm. And when we check the status, there is an annual report about status of teachers. My country came the last. And nobody wants to become a teacher. And I think we have to change it if we want a future in my country. So my passion is to fight for my country to be at the best in 30 years from today. Mm-hmm. And in order to think 30 years ahead, like Singapore does, you have to raise the best children, you know, with the best teachers. That it is the only way. There is no other way. Nobody will raise our children or our grandchildren other than the teachers.
Absolutely.
And since I think everybody forgot the teachers. 50 years ago, a teacher was very...
Absolutely. You're out of time. Sorry. You're so passionate. Carol, I want to bring a question over to you.
You can come to listen to me in 30 minutes in 6 o'clock.
I will listen to you. And it's, by the way, it's our silent person in the corner that is muting you, like we said before. So that way I can be present in the questions. Carol, you had said that you're cynical, which I love cynicalness. And I want you to, knowing what you know now, even without, I mean, COVID's a part of it, but not having it COVID-centric, what would you go back and tell your 15-year-old self, your 17-year-old self, whatever that moment was that you made a decision that you wanted to go into academia, what would you tell yourself to help prepare yourself for the future?
Interesting question, because it's really, you know, but I think perhaps, and I think that what I'm going to say is shows an intersection of the different ways in which I'm located. So I'm located as, well, right now an academic, a researcher, a teacher, educator, you know, somebody who lives and works and is proud of being located in a developing country and proud of being part of that movement towards the future. But more importantly, I think I'm also very mindful of my location as a woman. And I think that speaking to my 15-year-old self, even though I was fortunate to be raised by parents who valued my, you know, being a female and encouraged me to proceed in spite of, I think that one of the things, I still struggled with that confidence to be assertive, to expect, you know, respect, and to help for my confidence to be rooted in my recognition that it is okay to be assertive. It is okay to advocate for myself. You know, I think we very often, we spend too much time not achieving because we feel we need to fit into certain roles and expectations. So I think that is one reason why I'm so caught up in the notion of helping teachers to develop their voice, to learn to be assertive, to learn to not just take anything that is dished out to them. There's too much expectations for teachers to just be warriors and keep moving forward and carry the load of developing their country, being nation builders without getting the, you know, the benefits in return. So I think that if I were going to speak to my 15-year-old self, I would say, look, you know, be more conscious of the effect of socialization on you. And then as a young teacher, be more conscious of how I was socialized to internalize the expectations that I must always do, regardless of having no resources, you know, having little support. These are things that are really damaging to young teachers. And it is something that I would have liked to do differently. I've learned now over many, many years, but you know, maybe it's too late, maybe it's not, I don't know.
Well, you can always pass that down to others. And I think that that's like
yes.
the point of this panel is to really share where what you've been through, where you're at, what you see for the future. And I appreciate you being so candid. Professor Joanna, I'd like to ask you the same question. You know, knowing what you know now and developing so many other teachers and being so involved, what would you say to your 15, 17, 18-year-old self? Yeah, Professor Joanna.
I completely don't understand. Tell me again.
So not a problem. So if you could give advice to, I'll reframe it. If you could give advice to the person you were when you made the decision to be a teacher or be a professor, what advice would that be as a young Joanna, knowing what you know for the years that you've been in education?
I never would like to be a teacher. We should start from this point of view. So, in my case, it was by a chance, but when I was very young, I have two dreams. First of all, I would like to play ballet at the theater, so actor, which is a part of being a teacher at the stage. And the other thing was that really, when my grandmother was about passing away, she posed a very important question to me. Joanna, what would you like to do in the future? And I was around 15, and I said I would learn for the whole life. So I think that, I don't know how I found this answer, but it's a very good answer because I see how much powerful it was, and if I could share any advice with me for the future and with the prospective teachers, I think that they should treat this like a sign point in their career. They should learn, and one of the very famous theories of education and andragogist, the person who worked with the adult people, Duccio Duccio, he said we should learn from the life. So we have the pandemic now, and our teachers, they are reflective practitioners, so we can offer them a lot of trainings, but we should remember that every time they should be reflective about the practice. They should ask themselves what the situation creates for them and how they were able to learn from these situations. I think it's a good advice because no one will develop teachers. We can offer them a lot. We can offer them high salary, very good training conditions. But in fact, if teachers would not take care of themselves, then we will see no real change in our society. So my advice is pay attention to your learning. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Joanna. Professor Ling Lo, I'd like to bring it over to you, and I do want to reframe it slightly because you are in such a developed country in a pioneer environment, a pioneering environment. What would you say to a young individual deciding their career path and possibly thinking about going into academia in other countries, knowing what you know and being involved in the level that you have been in such a developed country and a forward-thinking country?
Sure. First of all, I'd say that you need to redefine what is meant by impact, because when you are an academic, especially as we all know, in order to cross the professorial bar, people will always ask you to focus on impact. But we need to, as teachers and teacher educators, redefine what that impact is. And as teachers and as educators, that is to bring out the maximum potential, which is the best in each and every student that comes across our path. I think that to us is the greatest impact. And we must realize that not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that is countable counts. So I think that is extremely important when you speak to a young person. I would also tell them that if you would like to be very rich, you probably have come into the wrong profession, but we will be defined as being very rich in a very different way, because like in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it is really not about how much material wealth that you have that will make you fulfilled as an individual, but truly the impact that you have in bringing out the best in others. And for that matter, I always believe in this saying that behind every successful person is a teacher who first believed in your potential. And I think that all of us are here with the same passion because someone believed in us. And I'd like to end by sharing a very powerful quote that I heard from one of the great thought leaders, a colleague of mine, who talked about what it means to be a teacher. So a teacher is somebody who plants a tree and nurtures it from the time you plant it as a seed. It grows up into a sapling, into a big tree, so that eventually someone enjoys the shade from this tree, but does not even know who planted it in the first place. And I think many of us were talking about the non-recognition of teachers, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we know that we may not matter in the eyes of governments, but to the student, to the many students that we have made an impact to, we have mattered. Most importantly, our lives have mattered because we have inspired others to realize their full potential and to have succeeded.
Oh,
thank you.
Beautiful. And I am going to share a recap on yours after I go to Karuna and ask her a question, because I think if I did it now, I'll probably cry because you made me emotional with that. Karuna, I'd love for you, from a younger generation perspective, you know, how do you feel is the best way, or what are some things that you could say to the younger generation to inspire that wanting to be in academia and wanting to make a difference?
I would actually have two advices. The first one would be a teacher, because when you're a teacher, you are actually in every profession. So every day if today I want to be an artist and suddenly I want to paint, I can just do an idea with my art teacher and I can do that. So it actually brings out many skills in you. And like we discussed, you are always building yourself. So you're always learning and you're pushing yourself to become a better person. So teaching is the best profession to be. And second, I would actually write on what Professor Lowe was saying. Just yesterday, I got a message from my student out of the blue on Teams, and the student wrote to me and she was like, Miss, I was just on my bed and I was thinking about our lesson today about acid and base. And I think I want to be a dermatologist. And do you think skin has different pH? And I was so happy because I wasn't teaching for that. We had discussions, but that seed that was planted, that professor just said, grew into a plant. And this is the impact that teachers leave without even knowing what we're doing. So two things again, you can be whoever you want and you will leave impressions on people maybe you will never find out about.
Absolutely. I can't believe it's been an hour and a half. And first, I want to thank all of you for your candidness, for your ideas and what you're going through, and just for showing up. And on top of that, I want to give a huge wholehearted thank you, because I was that child who the teachers were my point of light in my life. I grew up really broken and with a very unsupportive household. And it was the teachers who made the difference in my life. And so I'm not going to get emotional, but I appreciate you. And I know there are so many out there like me. So thank you so much. And I will say, if any of these teachers, and I didn't want to get emotional, any of these teachers or professors and Yuri are only guy on the panel, which I love. We've been having guys on the panel as well. If they've inspired you, please reach out to them. Please contact them through LinkedIn or whatever. I know Yuri had put his website in the chat. Please reach out, have further conversations. This is how change happens, is to have the conversation about it. We have to be talking about it and we have to put action to it. And so get involved. Figure out what you can do in your own circle to make this change, to really bring back the respect for the teachers and to honor those that are maybe quietly doing it behind their closed doors. How can we bring that forward and create this movement to continue to support our academia and all of the work that you do, because you are who has shaped us. And I appreciate you all. So thank you so much. And I really, we have so much gratitude that you've been on the panel today. Thank you all for sharing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.